We back. Come on in, tell a friend. All black everything. This is all black everything. Big dreams, many streams. Think it's plight. Back with the when the world was black. Talking about. We still doing it in the dark, after dark with the candles lit, but we still doing it. Hey, right where we left off, y'all. Like it, share, subscribe, and thumbs up. Like you hitchhiker, you know how we keep it rock, keep it rocking. Where we at? Talk about what is Africa? What about Africa? We gonna see what it say. Another thing you will notice about the standard telling of human history is that Africa is only relevant millions of years ago during the evolution of modern humans, and then much later, whenever they say those humans left Africa for greater pastures. Isn't that offensive? As if there were no human history worth in that gap. Then the next time Africa becomes relevant is after the rise of ancient Egypt, which is 100,000 years later. That's 1,000 centuries of history ignored. But guess what? It's not just the European scholars who do this. When's the last time you read a black history book that dug into African history before the rise of the Nile Valley civilization? There's not too many. No. As African historian Joseph Kai Zerbel says, Africa has a history. The time has long gone by when maps had great empty spaces representing the African continent as marginal and subordinate, and the knowledge of the scholars on the subject was summed up in the cryptic phrase Igbo sunt loans, or here be the lions, here be lions. But then came the discovery of the minds and of their prophets, and incidentally of the native tribes which owned the mines, but which, like them, were annexed as property of the colonizing countries. The history of Africa, like the history of mankind, as a whole, is really the story of an awakening. The history of Africa needs rewriting, for up till now it has often been masked, faked, distorted, mutilated by force of circumstance, i.e., through ignorance or self interest. Yeah, bullshit. Crusaded by, crushed, I said crusaded, crushed by centuries of oppression, Africa has seen generations of travelers, slave traders, explorers, missionaries, governors, and scholars of all kinds give out its image as one of nothing but poverty, barbarianism, barbarism, uh, irresponsibility, and chaos. And this image has been projected and extrapolated indefinitely in time as a justification of both the present and the future. Yeah, you want to go in and exploit those places. For Africans, the history of Africa is not a narcissistic mirror, nor a subtle excuse for avoiding the tasks and burdens of today. He says, continue in. If it were, if it were an alienating device of that kind, this scientific object of the whole enterprise would be compromised. But not, but is not ignorance of one's own past, in other words, of a large part of one's, even more alienating. This is why I set out to fill the gaps. Let's start with the beginnings. He says, the origin of man. I'm doing it like this now. The origin of man. You hear me? Fumbling the light. Before the emergence of Homo sapiens, the planet was settled by an older species of man known to anthropologists as Homo erectus. We tend to give Homo sapiens all the credit for man made technology and other human devices, but this is only because Homo erectus is considered a primitive ancestor of Homo sapiens. But as you'll see in the following sections, there is strong evidence of continued continuity between the first Homo sapiens and their Homo erectus ancestors. The root of civilization. Throughout this book, we talk about a place we call the root of civilization. When we say civilization, we are talking about pretty much any culture we as original people ever founded, whether it was urbanized or not. After all, we were always civilized people, never savages. Remember that. We were always civilized people, never savages. We were always civilized and never savages. Remember that. So when we look for the root of where human activity and industry can be found, that's in East Africa. The earliest evidence of archaeological activity anywhere comes from the Great Rift Valley sites of East Africa, such as the Olduvai Gorge and the Afar Desert in Ethiopia. From dozens of sites like this scattered throughout East Africa, we can form a picture of our ancestors using tools, building homes, employing scientific reasoning to make collective decisions, making ecological use of natural resources, and all of the other earmarks of civilization. And we're talking about millions of years ago. The Science of Self, Volume 1, in the Science of Self, Volume 1, we explore the development of the origin of man, leading up to the emergence of the anatomically original man, modern original man, excuse me, leading up to the emergence of anatomically modern humans at the root of civilization, where we find the remains of people who fathered and mothered everyone on this planet today. It should be noted that these ancestors did not survive by chance or dumb luck. They developed the necessary tools and industry needed to compete with other lineages of archaic human and literally take over the globe. They were the best of the best. Just think about it. These people over 200,000 years ago possessed within themselves a legacy so strong that their descendants were once were the ones who carried on while millions of other lineages died off through the ages. And you're the last of kin. You, you, me, we. This is All Black Everything. Think it's Black, Big Dreams, Many Streams. We're going to leave it right there. When the world was black, we're going to come back, you know, keeping it, keeping it real authentic. Just sharing that information, giving it to you like it's supposed to be. What about Africa? But do your own research as usual. Don't take my word for that. Still got them shirts we rocking, custom mades. Go ahead, do your thing. Peace and love. Like and share, subscribe it, thumbs up, like it hits how you can share it, share it. Let's go, man. It's time to get this information. It's the age. It's the age. Can't stop it. Better ride the wave or get rolled over.